everybody. This is Coach Cofield with the Coach Cofield Show, here with a former Tallahassean and big-time administrator at the University of Florida, Coach Yusuf Shakir. How you doing today, Coach?
Thank you, Coach.
Man,
I'm great. No complaints. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm just glad, to be in your presence today.
I say
Okay.
the feeling is mutual. I'm happy to be in your presence also.
I appreciate it, Coach. Now, we've been knowing each other for a long time, since high school.
Yes.
I think he was in ninth grade when I first met you. Coach,
Yep.
your position at the University of Florida is assistant director of football operations.
No, it's football logistics.
Oh, okay. The thing I got is operations. My bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Coach, talk about your journey. We talked about you was a All-American in high school, top linebacker in the state of Florida. Went on to
Mm.
college, found you want to be in coaching and stuff. Talk about that. Talk about the journey.
Well, well, I'm gonna
Huh?
take you. I'm gonna take you all the way back to where it originated. Truly originated
Go ahead.
when we moved to Tallahassee when I was young. From Atlanta, I have an older sister. We were both born in Atlanta. We moved to Tallahassee. My father was getting his PhD from FSU, so that's what brought us to Tallahassee when I was
Oh,
young.
man.
Yeah, and so we grew up in Frenchtown, and on Copeland Street. That's where we've moved, and I grew up there until I got in about middle school, and then we moved out towards Lincoln off of Mahan Drive. But it really all started for me, really, in Frenchtown, where I grew up in our neighborhood. Just was a great neighborhood to grow up in. So many people, so many. How can I say it? We grew up around so many families that really were kind of the staples of Leon County in Tallahassee, Florida. The Mitchells, the Monroes, the Adderleys, all those people. So it was I tell people all the time, growing up in Frenchtown was a great experience for me as a young man, as a young child. There was so many great athletes growing up over there in that area, especially because I kind of lived on the cutoff between Leon and Guyby. And
Right.
so with the Fourth Avenue, all of those areas. So I grew up with watching so many great athletes and players. Actually, my next door neighbor, Gary, he played on one of those Guyby teams in the 80s that won those state championships. So I would go to the game with his mom. She would take me. She'd be like, "You said if you want to go to the game," I'm like, "Of course." So really, that's where my love for competition and competitiveness. Then also at the time when I was young, my mom was the principal at Riley Elementary, which was right around the corner. So I was really engulfed in that neighborhood and really just learned so much about competition and competitiveness from that area. But then when I was young, I went to FAMU High, and so I was on the South Side a lot, and I always was over there with all those great athletes and those competitive guys. But my mom is originally from Ellenwood, Georgia, and so I spent a lot of my summers up there with my grandparents, which is a lot of people know the great history of Southwest DeKalb High School. My mom is alumni of there, so I have a lot of great cousins who are great athletes. Growing up in that area was during that time, my time when I was coming up, Quincy Carter and all of those guys were playing at Southwest DeKalb, Arvin Richards, and a lot of those great players that went on to college. They actually won a state championship when we were in high school. So I grew up a lot of time playing around with those guys growing up in competitiveness. And my dad is from Hampton, Virginia, and everyone knows about that area, that Tidewater area and the greatness that Hampton, Newport News, and Norfolk, all those great athletes. So the summers I would spend between those two places. So I tell people all the time how I feel like they ask me how I became a good athlete, and I tell them I just was surrounded in great areas that were very competitive. Like Frenchtown, and of course the South Side of town, in Tallahassee, and then going to Ellenwood and Hampton, Virginia in the summers. I was just always around great athletes and highly competitive people who really wanted to succeed and be successful in life. So that's kind of the history of me as a young man. Then I played I started playing City League football in Tallahassee. I played for the Gator Giants. Coach Chester Brown, my good friend Kari Brown, his father. We one thing about when your friend's father run the team, we started like 2 years early. So, so you only supposed to play 2 years of Pee Wee football at that time, but we played 4. So
we're going back. I'm going to file a complaint with the league.
I don't know if they tell you if they're gonna take a complaint about playing skinny kids that were too young. And so then, so that's where I've actually first started playing the first contact football and tackle football during that time period. And then in middle school, you played junior league, I think it was called at the time. Then I played, of course, for the Gator Giants again. And that's when first time I met Coach Ira Reynolds, who played a huge role in my life and development. He was actually so he coached the offense, and I played defense at that time. Actually, most people don't realize that when I played Pee Wee football, I was actually a running back. So,
oh no,
yeah,
no, I didn't know that, Coach.
Yeah, I was. All young kids think they're running back. So
I know.
My two favorite players growing up when I was young in Pee Wee football was Tony Dorsett and Walter Payton. So,
oh man, two of the best.
Yeah, oh yeah. Interesting story. When the Dallas Cowboys traded Tony Dorsett, I had me a number 24 jersey. I had a raincoat. I had a lunchbox, everything, because of Tony Dorsett. When they traded him, I was mad. My mom was like, "Well, what you gonna do about it?" She was like, "You should write him a letter." I said, "Okay, well, let's do that." So I sat down and wrote him a letter how they shouldn't have traded Tony Dorsett. I don't know if my mom ever sent it or not.
Hey man, don't forget. Hey, the first time I ever saw Tony, I got to see him in person. They played at FSU.
Yeah.
And coming in high school, I wanted to see how tall I was compared to what he was. I always saw him on TV. When I walked over there and stood beside him, when they was coming in the gate, my dad was a policeman, so I could get in certain places. And I went over there, stood out. He only weighed like 170 some pounds.
Yeah, he wasn't a
I
big
went
guy.
over there, and I said, I weigh 150.
Yeah.
I was like, he was one of my favorite players, even though he played for Dallas Cowboys. He was one of
Yeah.
I'm not a Dallas fan, so.
But those are my two favorite players growing up. So
you picked some good ones, Coach.
Oh yeah, man, they were dominant. But then also my other favorite player, too, at when I really became in middle school was Ronnie Lott. He was one of my favorites.
I can imagine. You like to hear.
Yeah. So he was my favorite defensive player, and so when I got to Michigan, I was like to hit people, and then so I was just like, you know what, I think I told my friends, I said I'm gonna switch over to defense, because I was like, man, then plus at when you at running back, you only getting the ball a couple times a game, but you on defense, you involved in every play.
Oh Lord, you're involved in every play. You can block. you can
hit. They'll rotate you out too now, so you missing plays. I wanted to be on the field every play. So that's how I actually started playing defense for Jay Gaither Giants. And so that's what moved, and I started playing. But actually, before that, because I was at FAMU High, so in 7th grade, I actually played JV for the school. But then, and I was going to play JV again my 8th grade year, but they didn't have a JV team, didn't have enough players. So we didn't have a team. So that's what led me to play in City League football. But in 7th grade, I actually played for the school on the JV team.
Yeah, they started them early over there, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. And it was good. I always, and in my neighborhood, I always played with, it just wasn't, it was one other kid my age, my next door neighbor, actually, Jason Martin. I don't know if you remember Dr. Martin. He was a dentist over in
yeah.
But then they moved away. And so when they moved out, from over there, it was just me, and it was just nothing but older guys. So every time I always went somewhere, I always had to play with older guys, and so it was nothing different. And then plus, I have a sister who's 2 years older than me, and so when you're the younger sibling, you always got to tag along with the older sibling.
Bro, get away.
Yeah, and so I used to hang out with all, I was with her, so I just used to hang out with all the guys and stuff that was in her class and around her age. So I just would always end up playing with older people, which end up, I think, to me, it really made me the player who I was because of the fact that young, I was never the best player on my team because I always played with older guys. And so it was always, I was trying to prove something. I was trying to get better uh, on a day-to-day basis. And you trying to compete with older guys, you can, but you can't. They just stronger and bigger than you. So
ain't nothing you can do about
it at all. So that's kind of that's kind of my history of getting started and really my love for football. And to be honest with you, a lot of people always think that my dad, who was a very good high school player in the Hampton, Virginia area, in that Newport News area, everybody think that he kind of got me involved. It really was my mom. Really was the one who really, my dad really, he never pushed me to play, never know anything. He was always, him and my mom was all very huge academic people. And so, but people a lot of times think it's because of him, but it really wasn't. My mom, we would be outside throwing the foot. She would throw the football with me.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. I know you're going to love that one.
I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot, bro.
Yeah. So, and really, my mom is ultra competitive. So she is very, my dad too, but my mom does not believe in anything but giving your best in everything. And she does not believe in coming in second at anything that you do. And if you do come in second, you better give great effort. And the next time, better be better than the time before. It needs to be improvement on what you're doing. So, my mom, we would listen. She would on Saturdays, we would listen to the FAMU games on the radio. They had the FAMU games on forever on the radio. We would always listen to them. And then Ken Darby actually used to do the radio. I don't know if you remember Mr. Darby, Ken Darby, but he would be on the radio for the Rattlers. And me and his son was in the same class. My dad and him were very good friends. So we used to listen to the games on a little transistor radio.
The kids, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, a lot of people they don't have a clue what that is.
I don't know what that is, Coach.
Yeah, so we used to listen, and then it actually helped me. A lot of times, people, if they know me, they're around me in certain settings. I'll just a lot of times listen to a game, and they'll be like, "Coach, you're not even kind of paying attention." I say, "I'm paying attention. I'm visualizing and seeing it because." When we listen to the games on the radio, you have to create a picture of what you think is going on. And it actually helped me a lot, I feel, in coaching with being able to visualize and see how plays are supposed, how it operates and how they unfold. And you kind of get a chance to have a foreshadowing of what's to come. I think that played a large role in it because we would listen to the games on the radio during that time period. So that's really, you talking about really my love for football. That's really where it came from. And then in the summers, when I would be in Georgia with my grandparents, I would watch, they would have the Vince Dooley show, would play replays in the summer. And they had the yellow lumber and all of that. But they would show replays in the summer of the Vince Dooley shows from the year. And so I used to sit there and my grandfather, he would let me watch it, because you weren't going to watch nothing that my grandfather didn't want to watch on TV. So it was one TV in the house.
The olden days,
Yeah. And so that's what, and so he would allow me, he saw I kind of had an interest in it. And so he would just sit there and watch it. Yusuf wanted to watch it. So I would watch it early in the mornings on the weekends. In the summertime, they would always replay it. And during that time period, so that really, really love for football really came in those aspects of it, and just growing up and outside and being competitive. And like I say, growing up in Frenchtown, man, we used to have some great games in the yard and in the neighborhood. So And then we used to play the little old school sideline stick. You get hit on the seat. And so nowadays I don't know kids even do that anymore.
They don't probably go out and play on video game, man.
Yeah, so it became a little rough setting for me, but it was good. And like I say, growing up really in Ellenwood, I would get to play with my cousins. My grandmother had 9 brothers and sisters, and my grandfather had 6 brothers and sisters. And so they were all, like, they actually they grew up in houses like less than a mile away from their home was. So all of my cousins lived in that same area, and so we would always play. And you know, your older cousins, they gonna play rough with you.
You know,
They
I'm trying
gonna
to
kind of,
beat you up.
oh yeah, that's
One
gonna
day
happen.
they'll change.
Yeah,
That thing will change in the future, so they know.
yeah. And then living in Frenchtown, I was like I say, not too around the corner. I don't know if you remember Kabama G that played running back for Florida High and went to Louisville.
I, briefly, I'm
Yeah,
kind of up in age. It's a whole
yeah.
lot of football seasons that went by this head.
Oh yeah. So he was a couple years older than me, and but our families were good friends, and so him and his cousin Ricky, I used to go play with them every day, and they would after school they would push me down, beat me up, and then I come in and I'd be crying. I'd be like, I don't know why you crying. You're gonna go back tomorrow, so just get on back out there and just go.
And
But
deal with it.
yeah, yeah. But it really was playing with older guys my whole life. Really, I think helped me develop into a very good player, a competitive player that wanted to win and wanted to improve. And then, of course, playing at a young age against older guys, and then playing, as you know, Coach, I started my career. I was at FAMU High from kindergarten all the way up until the 11th grade. And then I transferred over to Lincoln High School and finished out there playing under Coach Wilson, the Hall of Famer David Wilson.
Oh,
So it was a true blessing to play for him. And of course, at FAMU, I played for another Hall of Famer, and Harry Jacobs, who was a renowned track coach also. And really playing for him, really talking about running track and being in great shape and being just mentally tough. And so we were going, and at FAMU High, you play at a small school, you played every
players.
sport. We played football, basketball, we ran track, and we just went from sport to sport to sport. And then, like I said, you're able to compete against older guys at a young age. And just playing around and growing up in the school, seeing likes of Earl Holmes and Sam Madison, Chris Ford, and playing with all of those guys who were much older than me at a young age. Um, they were very competitive, and those guys were superstar athletes. Um, and it just really, it's just like Bob talks about iron sharpens iron. I really think that I never understood why kids kind of uh, go away from competitive environments. That's the thing that's actually going to make you better. Is actually when you play with different guys on a day-to-day basis, it's going to make you a better player on game day. Because when your practices are so competitive, and that's the speed that you're playing against highly skilled athletes on a day-to-day basis, you have no choice but to improve and to get better. You really, if you don't get better, you're really not trying to improve.
No.